I, 31M, am completely lost right now and need some perspective. My wife, 28F, and I have been together for 10 years, married for 7. We met in college when I was a senior and she was a sophomore. She was studying business administration but dropped out in her final year when we found out she was pregnant with our first daughter. We decided together that she would be a stay-at-home mom since childcare costs were almost equal to what she'd make at an entry-level job. We're a middle-class family with 3 daughters, Emma, 6, Lucy, 3, and 1 on the way due in 4 months. I work in medical equipment sales, and while the commission-based income can be irregular, I've always managed to provide a comfortable life for my family. We own a 4-bedroom house in a good school district with a mortgage that we've been consistently paying off. About 18 months ago, my wife approached me about an investment opportunity through her brother Diego's, 34M, real estate company. He claimed to be flipping houses in upscale neighborhoods and promised 12% annual returns. I was immediately skeptical because I knew Diego's history. Since high school, he's been involved in various get-rich-quick schemes that never worked out. He'd try everything from multi-level marketing to cryptocurrency trading, always claiming he was about to make it big. Diego loves showing off on social media, posting about luxury vacations in the Maldives, driving Ferrari rentals, and attending exclusive events. But I knew the truth. He was living in a rented apartment and had declared bankruptcy just 5 years ago. Despite this, my wife has always idolized her older brother. Their parents died in a car accident when she was 12 and Diego was 18, and he helped raise her along with their grandparents. She's always been blind to his faults because of this. When she first mentioned the investment opportunity, I flat out refused. We had $210,000 in savings, money we'd carefully accumulated over 7 years of living below our means. Neither of us comes from wealth. My parents are retired teachers living on a pension, and her grandparents passed away years ago leaving only their modest home, which Diego somehow convinced her to sell for one of his earlier ventures. But my wife wouldn't let it go. For 2 weeks straight, she kept showing me fake testimonials from other investors, doctored bank statements showing returns, and professional-looking business plans. She argued that the returns would help secure our daughter's future, pay for their college, and maybe even allow us to retire early. After endless discussions and her constant assurance that Diego had finally found legitimate success, I reluctantly agreed to invest $100,000. Looking back, I should have trusted my instincts. For months after the investment, I heard nothing concrete about returns. My wife would occasionally mention that Diego said things were going well, but when I asked for documentation or proof, there was always some excuse. The quarterly statements he sent looked professional but were vague about actual returns. I started getting worried, but my wife assured me it was normal for real estate investments to take time to show profits. 2 weeks ago, everything imploded. Diego disappeared without a trace, and the local news broke the story that he'd been running a massive Ponzi scheme, stealing over $6 million from at least 50 investors. Many were friends and family who trusted him because of his charismatic personality and seemingly successful lifestyle. I was devastated, but it got worse. After the news broke, my wife had a complete breakdown and confessed that she'd secretly invested another $75,000 without telling me. She'd taken the money out gradually over 6 months, always after my bigger commission checks came in, so I wouldn't notice the withdrawals immediately. She claimed Diego had convinced her the business was about to expand exponentially and early investors would make the biggest profits. I'm struggling to process this betrayal. We've lost $175,000, nearly our entire life savings. This money represented years of careful planning and sacrifice. It was meant for our daughter's education, our retirement, and emergencies. My job's commission structure means some months are significantly better than others, and we needed that safety net for the lean times. My wife has been crying constantly, barely eating, and begging me not to leave her. She claims she truly believed in Diego's business and was just trying to secure our future. She keeps saying she'll get a job after the baby is born and spend years paying me back. But I can't get past the fact that she went behind my back with that additional $75,000. The trust is completely broken. I haven't told her how angry I really am because her doctor warned us about keeping her stress levels down during this pregnancy. But inside, I'm furious and terrified. We won't be able to afford private school for our daughters next year, schools we chose specifically because the public schools in our area are overcrowded and underperforming. If I have a bad sales month, we have nothing to fall back on. My brother thinks I should divorce her, saying she's shown she can't be trusted with our family's financial security. The police are investigating Diego but told us not to expect the money back. Based on his credit card statements, he spent most of it on luxury hotels, gambling in Las Vegas, and wild parties. My in-laws, wife's aunt and uncle who helped raise her, are devastated and ashamed but can't help financially. They lost $250,000 in his scheme, their entire retirement fund. I love my wife and our life together, but I don't know how to move forward from this. Every time I look at our bank account or think about our daughter's future, I feel physically sick. How do I trust someone who gambled away our children's future behind my back? How do I explain to our daughters that they have to leave their friends and schools because mommy gave away all our money to Uncle Diego? I'm lost and need advice. Update 1. The situation has gotten significantly worse since my last post. What started as a devastating financial loss has evolved into something far more sinister. The police investigation into my wife's brother Diego revealed that he wasn't just running a Ponzi scheme, he was actively involved in money laundering for some extremely dangerous people connected to organized crime. My wife finally broke down last night and admitted something that made my blood run cold. She'd known about the criminal connections for 6 months but kept quiet because Diego had threatened our family. She showed me dozens of threatening texts from him demanding more money. The additional $75,000 she invested wasn't just poor judgment or blind faith in her brother, she was being blackmailed. According to her, Diego started sending threats about 6 months ago when she questioned why there weren't any returns on our initial investment. He claimed he'd gotten involved with some dangerous people who would come after our family if she didn't keep the money flowing. He sent her photos of our daughters at school and outside their dance classes to prove he was having us watched. I'm torn between feeling sympathy for my wife being manipulated by her own brother and overwhelming anger that she didn't tell me about the threats. We could have gone to the police together months ago. Now the FBI is involved, and we've had to hire a criminal defense lawyer to protect ourselves since technically my wife was involved in money laundering, even if under duress. The impact on our extended family has been catastrophic. My in-laws, who were like second parents to my wife after she lost her own, have completely fallen apart. My father-in-law had a massive heart attack from the stress and is in the ICU. My mother-in-law hasn't spoken to anyone in days, she just sits in the hospital room staring at the wall. The whole family is under investigation because the FBI doesn't believe Diego could have managed this operation alone. My wife's mental health has deteriorated rapidly. She's been hospitalized twice in the past week for severe anxiety attacks. Her obstetrician is extremely worried about the pregnancy and has warned us about the possibility of early labor due to stress. She's been prescribed bed rest, but she can barely sleep. She just lies there crying and apologizing over and over. I'm trying to be supportive because of the pregnancy and the fact that she was being threatened, but I'm also dealing with intense anger and betrayal. Our oldest daughter, Emma, keeps asking why mommy is always crying and why she had to leave her school. She misses her friends and doesn't understand why we can't afford ballet lessons anymore. Lucy, our 3-year-old, has started having nightmares and wetting the bed again. The media has gotten hold of the story and Diego's face is plastered all over the local news. They're calling it the biggest financial fraud in our state's history. Some of his victims have started harassing our family, blaming us for their losses. We've had people showing up at our house demanding their money back. One man threatened to burn our house down if we didn't repay him. We've had to change our phone numbers and I've installed security cameras around the house. My company has been understanding so far, but my sales numbers are dropping because I'm constantly dealing with family emergencies and legal meetings. I'm terrified of losing my job because we have absolutely no savings left. The legal fees alone are eating up most of my commission checks. The FBI agents investigating the case told us Diego's scheme went far deeper than anyone initially thought. He wasn't just stealing from family and friends, he was using the real estate business to launder money for a drug cartel. They found evidence of wire transfers to accounts in Mexico and believe he might have fled there. The investigators also revealed that Diego had been filming his meetings with investors and storing the videos as leverage. They found footage of my wife crying and begging him to give us our money back, and him threatening to hurt our daughters if she went to the police. Seeing those videos broke something in me, watching my wife being terrorized by her own brother while I was completely oblivious. We've been assigned a victim advocate through the FBI's Victim Assistance Program, and they're helping us create a safety plan in case any of Diego's criminal associates try to retaliate. We might have to move and change our names if the situation escalates. The thought of uprooting our daughters and starting over somewhere else is overwhelming, but their safety has to come first. I still don't know if I can save my marriage after all this. Yes, my wife was being threatened, but she had multiple opportunities to tell me the truth before it got this bad. How can I ever trust her judgment again? How do I know she won't keep other dangerous secrets in the future? I love her, but I'm not sure love is enough anymore. Update 2. The situation has completely exploded. The FBI found Diego in Mexico and extradited him back to face charges. During his interrogation, he revealed something that destroyed what little trust I had left in my wife. The initial $100,000 investment wasn't even real. My wife and Diego had planned it together from the start. They used our money to pay off Diego's gambling debts to a Mexican cartel. The whole story about house flipping and 12% returns was fabricated to convince me to release the money. When I confronted her with this information, my wife finally broke down and admitted everything. She'd been helping Diego hide money and lie to investors for years, even before we were married. Apparently, it started small when she was in college. Diego would ask her to deposit checks into her account or receive wire transfers, claiming it was for his legitimate business ventures. Over time, she got deeper into his schemes, helping him create fake business documents and lying to potential investors. The most devastating part was learning that she'd known about his cartel connections from the beginning. The threats he made 6 months ago weren't new, he'd been using similar tactics to keep her compliant for years. She claimed she wanted to get out multiple times but was too scared of what Diego and his connections might do. I filed for divorce yesterday. I can't stay married to someone who's been lying to me for our entire relationship. Every memory I have of our time together is now tainted. Was she thinking about her brother's schemes during our wedding? Was she helping him launder money while pregnant with our daughters? I can't stop these thoughts. My lawyer thinks we might be able to recover some money through civil asset forfeiture proceedings, but it could take years. Meanwhile, I've had to move in with my parents because we can't afford our house anymore. My daughters share a room now, and Emma keeps asking when we can go home. My wife is living with her aunt, under house arrest with an ankle monitor. Her pregnancy is high risk now due to all the stress, and her doctors are monitoring her closely. Despite everything, I still worry about her and the baby, but I can't get past her betrayal. The FBI is pushing her to testify against Diego and his cartel connections. If she cooperates, she might avoid jail time, but she'll need witness protection. The thought of my daughters potentially never seeing their mother again is heartbreaking, but maybe it's safer this way. Some of Diego's other victims have filed a class action lawsuit against everyone involved, including my wife. The lawyers say we might be paying restitution for the rest of our lives. I've had to hire a forensic accountant to prove which assets were purchased with legitimate income versus fraudulent funds. My in-laws have cut off all contact with my wife. They blame her for my father-in-law's heart attack and their lost retirement. The family is completely shattered. The only silver lining is that my daughters are too young to fully understand what's happening. I never imagined I'd be starting over at 31, living with my parents and facing financial ruin. But at least now I know the truth. I just hope my daughters can forgive me someday for not seeing the signs earlier. Update 3: The divorce is final. Diego took a plea deal and is serving 15 years in federal prison. My wife received 5 years probation for cooperating with investigators, but she's lost custody of all 3 children. The judge cited her involvement in financial crimes and endangering our children by dealing with dangerous criminals as the main reasons. She gave birth 2 months ago to our youngest daughter, Sarah. After a thorough evaluation, the court granted me full custody of all 3 girls. My wife gets supervised visits twice a month at a court-approved facility. The baby hasn't bonded with her at all, which the custody evaluator said is common in these situations. The FBI managed to recover some money from offshore accounts, about $30,000 of our original $175,000. The rest is gone, spent on Diego's gambling and lavish lifestyle. We're still named in multiple lawsuits from other victims, but my lawyer managed to negotiate a reasonable repayment plan based on my income. I sold our house and moved to a different state to escape the media attention and start fresh. My company transferred me to their office here, which was a huge relief. The girls are adjusting to their new schools, though Emma still has trouble making friends. She's in therapy twice a week, trying to process why her mother isn't living with us anymore. My wife's family has scattered. Her aunt and uncle moved to Florida, unable to face the shame in our community. Diego's wife divorced him and took their kids to California. My wife lives alone in a small apartment near the supervised visitation center, working as a cashier to pay her legal fees. The hardest part is watching my daughter struggle. Emma is old enough to understand some of what happened and feels betrayed. Lucy barely remembers her mother now but has separation anxiety. Baby Sarah will never know what our family was like before everything fell apart. I've started dating recently, mainly because my therapist suggested the girls need a positive female role model in their lives. It's strange being a single father at 31, but I'm managing. My parents moved nearby to help with childcare, which has been a blessing. The cartel connections still worry me sometimes. The FBI says Diego's testimony helped bring down several key players, but I still check the security cameras every night. We changed our last name as a precaution, and the girls' schools have strict security protocols about who can pick them up. I never imagined this would be my life, but here we are. At least my daughters are safe now, and that's what matters most. Sometimes I catch myself missing the family we used to be, but then I remember it was all built on lies. We're building something new now, something honest. It's harder, but it's real.